for a sequel of a film to develop with emotional maturity while still maintaining the original spirit that was captured and loved by many in the first film basically never happens. And yet Ant-Man and the Wasp manages to do exactly that. Before I go any further with this review, I should probably say where my opinions are coming from, because I know a lot of reviews I've seen of this were from die-hard Marvel fans, and I like Marvel, but I am a DC girl, and even if I didn't like DC, I don't think there are any Marvel films, or many Marvel films at least, that have truly captured my heart. But Ant-Man, the first film, was one of them, so obviously I had very high hopes for this film, and of course being a Paul Rudd fan, I had to jump to see it. And obviously in the UK we had a bit of a wait, but I think it's been worth the wait. Now the big question is, before I get any further, and this will be spoiler free, no spoilers, I promise, was it as good as the first film? Yes. I don't think it was as surprising. I think the first film was very unique, but obviously just due to the nature of a sequel, it can't possibly be unique because it's progressing from the uniqueness of the first film. But as I said, it seems to develop, it gets more emotional, it's a more mature film, but it's still funny. It still recaptures the essence of the first film that I completely fell in love with. It's got this perfect blend of humour and action and emotion, and I can't fault the narrative, the development of the narrative, the actual concept. Just from start to finish, I did enjoy it. As I said, not as good as the first film. That's not really a bad thing about the film, it's just the first film is then making it a victim of its own success. So, as I said, I'm not a big Marvel fan, but this, unlike when I watched the first film, this one I actually did get some other references, for example, to Captain America and things, whereas with the first film, I didn't really get those references because I hadn't seen as many Marvel films. And there are still many Marvel films for me to see, so by all means, feel free to recommend some to me, and if I haven't seen them, I will try my best to see them. So, even if you aren't a Marvel fan, I think you'll still get something out of it, but I definitely recommend that you watch the first one before seeing this, and quite close proximity as well. I can't remember how long it's been since I saw the first film. I've only seen it once, maybe 1.5 times I've watched some of the scenes again, but there were things that were said in this film where either I just wasn't paying attention, which I hope was not the case, or there are some gaps in my memory where I don't remember certain aspects of the first film, and therefore I kind of wish I'd rewatched the first film before seeing this one. I don't think it's essential to watch it just before you see it, but certainly if your memory is like mine and, as I said, you're not fully immersed in the MCU, then I definitely think it would be beneficial. But my poor memory aside, I have nothing to complain about. The acting was great. Obviously Paul Rudd is incredible. The editing was brilliant. The narrative progression was great. Obviously, because we've got the same director, it was always going to retain some of the feel from the first one, but it did it so much more than I had expected. It maintains its colour. I get really annoyed with a lot of sequels to films, because when the first film is very bright and colourful, they try and make the sequel more mature by making it darker. But this one doesn't really do that. Even as we're progressing kind of towards the middle point, it's still brightly coloured. And that's both in terms of humour, but also in just terms of the film's colour palette. And a lot of the editing is very engaging still, very kind of fast-paced, but not so quick that it changes tone radically enough to kind of make you all kind of forget what's happening. I don't like it when sequels change tone compared to the first film. Didn't do that, and that for me is the selling point with this film. I need a sequel to maintain the things that I loved from the first film. Ant-Man does that. We have a great narrative, we have great dialogue, great acting, great humour, great cast, great directing, great editing, great colour palette. I can't fault it. As I said, not as good as the first film. Nothing will ever beat a giant Thomas the Tank Engine. If you haven't seen the first film, I apologise for that. But you do need to see Ant-Man and the Wasp. Let me know your thoughts on this film and whether or not you thought it was a sequel that lived up to the quality of the first film, and I'll speak to you all soon.